to Hello Dolly. Compared with My Fair Lady, it is a much more conventional musical, much more conventional comedy centered on love and funny happenings that occur to people in love, such as money problems, problems with older relatives, problems with shyness, and so on. The musical was based on a very old dramatic concept of a busybody matchmaker trying to arrange marriages for all the characters, but finally getting married herself to a half a millionaire, as he is described in the plot, Horace van der Gelder. So we have this Jewish matchmaker. It's quite important that she's a Jewish character. The Jewish subplots will feature quite prominently in the Broadway musical of the 60s. The musical version was based on a theatrical comedy from the 30s called The Merchant of Yonkers. It was made by another big name on Broadway, Jerry Herman. This was his breakthrough musical, very successful, and what followed were at least two more big titles. We'll talk about them in a moment. So, Hello Dolly premiered in 1964, and it went to win 10 Tony Awards, including the most coveted Best Musical prize. This was a record that the show held for over 35 years, so this was a tremendously successful show. It had several revivals, including 3 on Broadway, great international acclaim, and in 1969 the film version was made, which would also have its own great success, including several Academy Award nominations. The main difference between the film version and the stage version is, of course, that the stage version has a few more songs, and also the character of Dolly Levi, the matchmaker. This was a role written for a middle-aged actress. Originally, the actress who was supposed to play Dolly was Ethel Merman. You may want to Google her, Ethel Merman. She was one of the great divas of Broadway of that period. And she was a woman in her middle age, and she was not really a delicate lady, but rather an outspoken character actress, a very rambunctious character who would always speak her mind and be very lively. Unfortunately, as they were working on the production of the stage version of Hello Dolly, Ethel Merman had an illness and could not perform. So the role of Dolly was taken by Carol Channing, and this proved to be a great success, both for the show and Carol Channing herself. However, Barbara Streisand, who plays Dolly in the film version, was very young. She was only in her 20s, and many critics said that this was really a low point of the film, that Dolly was so young. She was wearing makeup and the clothes that made her look a little bit older, but in fact the role of Dolly is one of the dream roles of actresses in a certain age. So I would say like a generation older than Barbara Streisand was when she played Dolly. So to finish off with Jerry Herman, he continued his success in 1966 with Mame. We talked about it a little bit when we talked about history. This is a similar story, again with a very flamboyant female character of a certain age who is an aunt of a young boy, and she brings him up and she makes him into a gentleman. However, an even more interesting musical by Jerry Herman was made in 1983. The title is La Cage aux Folles. We also talked about it a little. This is the one about a drag queen club and a gay couple who have a son, and the son wants to marry a daughter of a very conservative family. So here we are in Hello, Dolly. If you watch the film, fine. This is a typical romantic comedy musical, focusing on love, focusing on quite schematic characters, stock characters. So we have different couples coming from slightly different social backgrounds, but they are all within the middle class. And they have money problems, they have problems with their personalities, but thanks to Dolly Levi, a widow matchmaker, they are finally reconciled, and it all ends with marriage. One of the highlights of the film version is a prominent role of the very young Michael Crawford, so one of the great names in musical theatre, the originator of the role of the Phantom of the Opera. We'll talk about it later. So here he plays Cornelius, the young assistant of Horace. So everybody likes a play about lovers, and the theme of problems in love and love denied in the name of pride and money and such things are very, very popular. So this is really a typical thing, and this is also a very typical comedy. So I would say that Hello, Dolly is a quintessential musical comedy, and we may want to ask ourselves at this point a question: what really is the characteristic feature of comedy and tragedy? And in my view, tragedy is very individualistic. In tragedy, the protagonist is alone, and their failures, their problems are their own problems, and the alienation of the central character from the society is really what makes tragedy a tragedy. Quite the opposite in the comedy. We have love, which is a very personal theme, but the way that love is played out in a comedy is profoundly pro-social. And one of the excerpts that I would like you to watch is the main love song, It Only Takes a Moment. This is the love song between the characters of Cornelius and the owner of a hat shop. So they start really singing to each other as a very personal, intimate love song. But as you will see, and this is played for laughs, this is played for comedy, they think they are alone in the park. But it turns out that there are lots of people in the park, including this funny alcoholic character from under the bench, who heard everything, and he now recalls and retells the whole thing to other characters. So love ceases to be a personal matter, and if we really think about it, it's not only a story of love, it's a story of marriage. And why do people get married? Are any of you married? Would you like to be married? Why? Usually in the modern world you are in love already, so why get married on top of that? And actually the reason why so many comedies end with marriage is that marriage is a social ceremony. It is a ceremony which brings the personal love They are welcomed into the society and reintegrated. So this is really the focus of comedy. Comedy is about the characters being reintegrated